Good afternoon, my most favorite grade 10 IT class. Um, I so much wish I could be there with you and us having class together, but take heart, it's not going to be that long anymore, I hope, and then we can see each other again. So, today we're starting a new chapter, chapter 5, and that's all about decision making. So we'll have a brief introduction to what this is, and we are going to look at decisions in algorithms. Algorithms, just to remind you, are step-by-step instructions in a very chronological and logical way to solve a problem. So today I'm just going to introduce. We're not going to do a lot of work today. You're going to look at some flow charts, and then you're also going to do a trace table, and we're only going to do one activity, and then I want to give you enough time to actually study already for tomorrow's test. So decision making, the entire unit today we'll be covering 5.1, but in the days and week to come we will look at Boolean expressions. Boolean is something that is either yes or no, and then we'll look at if and then, very important functions or structures within programming to actually come to a point where we can make a decision. Boolean operators, those are like bigger, smaller, equal, etc. We'll look at those. If then else, so we're going to extend our if then statement by adding an else. So if this is not true, or if this is true, we do this. If it's not true, we do something else. And then we also have something that we call a nested if-then statements, where we can have several if statements within, one structure. And those nested if statements can be summarized in what we call a case statement. In case of, and then we can list the different options and its instructions. So if you don't understand this yet, you don't have to. So don't worry, just chill. My daughter would say, hey, Dad, chillax. All right, so we're going to skip the introduction. It literally means in programming, decision making is so important. That's what makes, programs actually work. You come to a point and then a decision needs to be made to either do this or that. And in most cases, it's a little bit more complicated than this or that. There's some highly complicated calculations in some programs. But for us, we're going to start quite simple. So decisions and algorithms. So it's a matter of whether something is true or false. So when we look at flow diagrams, a decision is always displayed as a diamond. Right, so in chapter 1, which I asked you to, when you did the revision, to look through, I hope you did. There was an activity that asked you to write down an algorithm to make hot chocolate. In your tests in the first term, you had to write down an algorithm to make a cup of coffee. So it's very similar. So over here we had, adding the water to the kettle, adding milk, but not everyone likes milk in their coffee. Not everyone drinks sugar in their cup. There's a lot of decisions that we actually need to add to make this algorithm more effective. So we can come up with a flowchart or an algorithm as follows. Add water to the kettle, blah, blah, blah. If the user wants milk, then add 30 millimeters of milk. So we have a decision or a flow. We're starting, add water, turn kettle on. Want milk is the question. If yes, we add it. If no, we ask another question, want sugar. So you can see that regardless of whether they want milk or not, we will end up with a question, want sugar. However, if they want milk, we will do an instruction as another step in between. And if not, they go straight to the sugar. And we have the same kind of procedure with the sugar. If yes, then the sugar is added. If no, we're going to add the boiling water. We're going to stir. Well, for 10 seconds, you're going to stare at the cup while you stir it for 10 seconds. And that's the end of it. So in our example, over here, we have an algorithm that decides whether a number is an even number or an odd number. And so when an even number is divided by 2, it does not have a remainder. And this already cries mod and diff all over. When an odd number is divided by 2, it has a remainder of 1. So read the number, remainder, number mod 2. If remainder is 0, then display number is even. If remainder is 1, then display number is odd. So we have a start, read number, remainder. So we have our task or our calculation, something that's being done. So input, I just want to highlight this. So we have our start, which is an end, which is an oval in our flowchart. We have our input or output that is displayed, I think, what is this called? Parallelogram or something like that. It's that tilted rectangle. Then we have our rectangle when calculations are done or a specific task is completed, and the decisions are done with a diamond. All right, and then in between we have the arrows that kind of show the flow of it. Just a highlight here again. So with Boolean remainder 0, question mark, because it's a question, we are unsure, or remainder 1, then it's even. So if it is 0, then it is an even number and we end it. If it's not, we're going to ask, is there a remainder of 1? Yes, then it's an odd number and we end our algorithm. So then to go through this flowchart, we can use a trace table, and we've done trace tables in the previous chapter. So we have our lines of codes, and now we have all possible variables, but also outcomes. So each of these outcomes actually has a column of its own. So the remainder is the output or of our calculation. But when we ask the question, the Boolean expression will either be false or true, and those we put into 2 separate columns. Why? I'm not sure, but that's how they want us to do it. And then we have our output. So in this case, we've inputted a number called 5. We do the calculation mod 2, which has a remainder of 2. In our decision, this one, remainder 0, that's false. Remainder 1, that's true. And we're displaying 5 as an odd number. So for the remainder of the spirit, I want you to do activity 5.1, and we will tomorrow have the test, and then the day after we will continue with our Boolean expressions and the if-then statement. All right, guys, I hope you manage. You know that you can ask me anytime, any question.